Welcome to the channel. In this video, we are going to be checking out different fret saws to help you make a decision on which one's going to work for you, and then I will also tell you which one I chose and why. Stick with me. Here are the saws that we are going to be checking out today. So we have the blue spruce. These three right here are new concepts that are slightly different. We'll dive into those in a little bit. And then these three here are jeweler saws. So I'll pop up like the names and models and prices and stuff. While you guys are checking that out, I do have to give a huge shout out to my buddy Lou. You guys have been hearing his name like crazy because he is just amazing. For the last probably 2 months, I've always had a tool of his in my shop so I could do a video on it. So Lou, I appreciate you way more than you'll ever know. I am also going to have another video coming out because Lou gave me a gift that I will never forget and I will cherish for the rest of my life. So keep an eye out for that video because I'm excited about it. Let me pause for a moment and say that they can all cut wood. Every single one of these saws is going to cut, but there are different things about these saws that are going to make some of them easier and more preferred than others, and that's what we're going to focus on this video. So let's go ahead and dive in. So when it comes to picking a fret saw, coping saw, jeweler saw, whatever you're going to pick, there are three main points that you need to pay attention to, and then one bonus point. The first point is, how is the blade held? So for the new concept saws, and I would say most of the quote higher end saws, the blade goes into this little hole here on both sides, and then you tighten it down. Okay. For jeweler saws, most of the time it's a clamp. Now this piece is metal. I thought it was plastic, but it's not. It's actually metal. Both of these saws have the same clamping method, and those jaws have ribs in them, so it holds the blade in place. This one has the hole, so you can find some jeweler saws that have holes in them to hold the blades. I much prefer having the holes because those are going to be milled, I guess, machined to be parallel to each other. With this one, it's up to you. Depending on how you align the saw in that clamp, your blade can go this way and then up. It can bow, it can do all kinds of weird things unless you clamp it well in here. So that's up to you. But the upgrade to the holes on the higher end saws, I mean, that's a price difference there. So that's something that you're gonna have to think about. The next point is tensioning the blade. When it comes to jeweler saws, you have this here and this here. So for this one, what you do is, let me loosen this because that's a tension, and then this is a tension. So this bar right here moves. Okay, so what you do is you push that, tighten it down, and then you have the extra safety net of this. If you don't push well enough with your hands, you can turn this to fine-tune the tensioning, which I like. But some jeweler saws don't have that. This one has a screw here, and I thought it was the tension. I had been messing around with it, but what that does, it holds this bar into this piece. So if you're going the jeweler saw route and it does not have that safety net, pass. Skip it. Don't go for it. Avoid it like the plague. Because no matter how hard you push this and try to get this right, you will never be able to tension the blade like you need to without that safety net. So this one, don't recommend at all. It's out. The next thing for blade tensioning, most of the saws that I've seen, they have the handle tension. So you unscrew this, it loosens the tension, you tighten it down, it tightens the tension, okay? That method works just fine as well. Now with the blue spruce, I will mention that I was running into the issue of whenever I would tighten it down, the blade, because these ones have a thing where you can adjust the blade 180 degrees. When I would tighten it down, it would slip. And then that 180 degrees would go out, and I'd have to loosen this, tighten it down, and fiddle with that a little bit. So just be careful if you have the blue spruce or you're going blue spruce. New Concepts by far has the easiest tensioning that I've seen. So it's just this lever right here. So you loosen the lever, you can tighten or loosen the screw depending on whether you need to increase the tension, decrease the tension, and then you just take that, flip it back up, and your blade is tensioned and ready to go. So that's awesome. So tensioning is important. As you can see, I threw that saw out. I don't recommend it because you need to be able to get good tension on this blade for it to cut well, for you to cut straight, and for you to not break blades. The next thing we're going to look at is depth of cut. With most jeweler saws, you're getting a 3-inch depth of cut. New Concept sells a 3-inch, and Blue Spruce, theirs is 3 inches. New Concepts also sells a 5 and an 8. The one thing I want to mention on depth of cut, well, what is it first? So first it means if the blade's here, how much room do you have before you hit the top of the frame? With these saws, these ones right here, they have a built-in mechanism for you to be able to turn where the blade teeth are. If this one will do it for me. There we go. So there we go. Okay, so you can take these and turn them and adjust your blade to different angles. So for example, if you are working on a piece and you need to reach to the other side for whatever reason, you can't go this way, you need to go this way and it's bottoming out, you can turn that blade so that way you can cut this way and still have the teeth going this way. So depth of cut is not that big of a deal depending on what you do. If we're just talking clearing waste, turn your blade and cut this way. Okay, if you don't prefer that, then obviously you need to go with a bigger depth of cut. If you have weird projects where you need to cut deep into something, then okay, go with the 8-inch, but just keep that in mind when it comes to depth of cut and when you're looking for a saw. For these jeweler's saws, they don't have the mechanism that turns them, but what you can do is you can take pliers, take it onto the blade, turn the blade. And there you go. I think I just broke mine. I had turned this one multiple times, so they're not likely going to break right away, but now my teeth are on this side of the saw, so I can hold the saw this way and cut that way, okay? And then when you're done, you can bend it back. It's obviously not a preferred method, but if you're going budget option, you can still turn the blade if you need to. So now I'm going to walk you guys through the process of elimination that I went through when I was picking a saw, and then also kind of my review on each one of these saws. If you have to go with a budget option, then jeweler saw is going to be the way to go because, for example, this one was $15 and it works. Now, if your jeweler saw starts getting expensive, if we're talking spending $50 on a jeweler saw, New Concepts sells a jeweler saw for $68. It doesn't have as many bells and whistles, but it will be a lot less fiddly than these. So keep that in mind if you're deciding to go with a jeweler saw. I decided not to go with the jeweler saw. I guess I should throw in here now. This saw right here is the one that I chose to go with. It is the Mark IV New Concepts 5-inch saw. I picked this up at Handworks because I was talking to the lady at the desk. If you remember, this is the one that I said don't recommend it because I can't afford it. Well, I walked up to the lady at the desk and I'm testing out these saws and trying all of them out. And I told her, I said, look, I'm sorry, I'm not going to buy one. They're too expensive and I'm not going to use it that often. And she said, yeah, but it'll be the last saw you ever have to buy. And that really resonated with me because I was tired of fiddling with this one and I was looking at getting another jeweler saw so I didn't have to be as fiddly. So I said for $119, I'll never have to buy another saw and it's not as fiddly or fiddly at all. I like this saw a lot. So, if you can, save up the money and get something other than a jeweler saw. That's going to be my very first recommendation. If you're just starting out in woodworking and you're not sure you're going to like woodworking, then I understand why you would get a $15 saw because that's exactly what I did with this one right here. But for purposes of this video, I'm eliminating the jeweler saw because I don't recommend it. So now we are left with the higher end saws, and the first one out of these that I want to look at is the blue spruce. Let me start by saying, I don't recommend this saw at all. I hate saying that. I don't like giving negative reviews on things, but I ran into a lot of issues with this saw. Let me start by telling you, it's beautiful. I love the design of this. I love the Coco Bolo. I know normally it comes with a curly maple, but it is a beautiful saw. I love the innovation that Blue Spruce was coming up with in designing this saw because right now it's in a coping saw, but you can put these attachments on and turn it into a fret saw. I love the concept of that. It's great for minimalists. It's great to save area and space in your shop. However, this setup is $300. When I think of minimalist, I think of an average priced tool that can do multiple things. This is not an average priced saw. The saw alone is $250. This attachment is $50. This attachment is a pain. It is very fiddly. I struggled to be able to change it out, so let me show you guys that real quick. All right, so I am done messing with it. I was gonna try to show you guys how this swaps out, and every time I would swap it out, I would run into issues and end up not being able to teach it, so I'd have to go back, because I'm recording, I'd have to go back, put this blade in, record taking it out, putting the next thing on, but then again, I would run into issues, and I would have to start all over, and I'm just not doing it anymore. Sorry. But, so, basically, these holders, this pin right here, goes into where the pins on these blades go. So this pin comes out, you screw it in there, then you have to put the blade in and tighten it down, which would be fine. But the issue that I'm running into is these blades are shorter than the coping saw blades. So for the coping saw blades, you slap the blade in there and you adjust the tension here and you're done. You tighten it, you're good to go. That's not the case with these. You also have to adjust the tension on this side, but this side has a little piece that has ball bearings in it that if that piece comes out of the saw, the ball bearings go everywhere, which is something they say in their own video. So it was making me nervous to adjust this because this saw isn't mine. So could you imagine me calling Lou and be like, hey Lou, I broke your saw, your $300 saw. And now we have to get a replacement part for it. So it was making me nervous doing that, but you can't just use this side to tension with the fret saw. You also have to use this side. And then as I was doing that, it just did it. That kept happening to where this screw is tight, but this. So I don't know what's happening, but I have to loosen this, get it where it needs to go, line it up with the other one, tighten this down again. And there we go, now it's tight. Okay, so that kept happening. At one point, the blade kept slipping out because I had to adjust the tension, so that was user error, but for a while I would get this tight. It just did it again. Okay, so don't turn the handle at all. Once you get it figured out, don't turn the handle at all, unless it's to loosen the tension. What? It just turned. I'm starting to think that maybe his has an error or something because this is tight still. This screw is tight, and that's the screw that changes that. And now I can't undo the tension, so let me tighten this back down. Tighten this down. Now let's see if I can undo the tension. Okay, there we go. I can undo the tension now. So, the issue that I was running into is when I would go to tighten the tension, it would move like that, or I wouldn't be able to go far enough, meaning I'd have to go to this side to adjust the tension over here, which again made me nervous. So I think the moral of this story, is it tight enough? Yeah. So the moral of this story, now it's loose. I don't know if you guys will be able to see it. See that? So, I don't know what to say now. Maybe his has an error. If you guys have the blue spruce saw, please let me know if this is an issue or not. So, with all of those issues, remember, $250 for the saw, $50 for the attachment, okay? But let me break down some numbers for you and explain to you why I'm not okay with that price. If this was cheaper, I'd be more inclined to like this saw or recommend this saw, but because of the price, I don't. Because, check this out. If we go with the New Concepts 3-inch, cheapest one that they sell, fret saw, $68. If we then add the New Concepts coping saw, $165. So that takes you to $233. You get 2 saws, so you don't have to change anything out, and it's cheaper than this saw. But let's step it up a notch. Let's go with the most decked out 5-inch new concept saw, the one that I chose, and the new concept's coping saw. That takes you to $284. Still cheaper than this saw, and you don't have to deal with flipping this out every single time. So if you're using a coping saw in a project, and then all of a sudden you need a fret saw, you have to go through that entire thing that I struggled with over and over and over again. So that's why I don't recommend this saw. Blue Spruce, I'm sorry, but I'm being honest, it is out. So this leaves us to the new concepts options. I probably should have reached out to New Concepts and said, hey, you want to sponsor me for this? Because I'm really giving them shout outs here, but I like supporting people and it's not always about money. So let's dive into checking these out. So this is the 3-inch, 5-inch, 8-inch. 3-inch, I don't recommend. Unless you are on a severe budget, but I don't recommend this one. This is the Mark IV version with all the bells and whistles, and it's $114 for 3-inch depth. Now, I know we talked about depth of cut doesn't matter that much, but if you spend $5 more, you get the 5-inch depth of cut. So to me, that was a no-brainer, and that's why I chose the 5 over the 3. If you do want to go with the 3-inch, then get their cheaper one that's $68. It doesn't have the lever and other things, so check that out. But anyways, my choice on this, 3-inch, out. Now between these two, full transparency, the 8-inch saws were just a little bit too far out of my budget, and I didn't see why I personally would need an 8-inch depth of cut for the projects that I make, so that's why I set it on 5-inch. Now, the choice between the titanium and the regular. I don't have one here, but a buddy of mine at Handworks bought the 5-inch saw in titanium. And what I noticed about it is, okay, it was lighter here, but it was very front heavy. And I did not like that. I didn't like the weight being here. I would much prefer the weight be essentially behind the blade. So that's why I chose this style. Price was a factor, but I was all in. Like when she convinced me it's the last saw ever, I was like, well then let's really pick which one I want. This is the one I picked because I didn't like the weight ratio of the titanium in the 5-inch. Now, if you decide that you need an 8-inch depth of cut, titanium is definitely going to be the way to go. You're going to have to eat the price on it, but it made a huge difference with the 8-inch. This style in the 8-inch was very heavy here, so as you're cutting, it's wanting to drop like that. Titanium is not. If anything, I'd say it's a little forward heavy still, but 8-inch depth of cut, it's going to be titanium all the way. There's no doubt about that in my mind. However, as I said, I don't need an 8-inch depth of cut for what I do, and especially with being able to move the blade around. So, this one, out. So this one right here is our winner. This is the Mark IV New Concepts 5-inch regular. I did add the grip to it for my hand. I am thoroughly impressed with this saw. I highly recommend this saw to anyone. It is $119, but again, it's the last saw you're ever going to need to buy, and it's just awesome to use.
So there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it helped you make a decision if you are looking to upgrade your current saw or get a fret saw or whatever the case may be. Clearly, I chose the New Concepts, the 5-inch. It just has so many benefits, and it's a really well-rounded saw for the price. And what the lady said at the Handworks booth is always going to stick in my mind. It's the last fret saw I will ever need to buy. So I pulled the trigger and went for it. And then, as you guys saw, I got the extra grip on here because you know I have issues with my hands. I like it a lot. I wasn't going to try to take it off for this video because I actually don't know if it'll come off now. But anyways, any questions, any comments, anything like that, let us know. If you guys picked a saw based on this video, or if you've tested out multiple ones before, let people know your opinion as well, because the best thing that you can do for yourself, gather multiple opinions and then form your own. All right, guys, I hope you have a good day. I hope you, whatever. Adios.
I love the innovation that Spruce blew. These ones you would have to use pliers. So